All right, we are joined here now by NBA author, writer, the author of the 5-year plan, the Mets tumultuous journey from New Jersey to Brooklyn, but I still haven't finished yet. I need to finish that book. I have the book. I never finished it.
It's not going anywhere.
I have it in my Kindle. I got it on Kindle years ago. I never finished it, bro. Greg Hrinya with us. What's up, buddy? It's been a while.
Nothing much. Thanks so much for having me. I love coming on.
Did you notice NBA's around the corner now?
Well, I was watching NBA right before I came on with you. I was watching the Knicks and Wizards preseason game. Not that we need to talk about that, but
I mean, I know it's Christmas is in December, but for me, this is great. Like for me right now, you have football and college football going right now. I'm a Mets fan, so the baseball playoffs are great for me right now as well. That's baseball. Hockey just started yesterday, and now we got basketball in the corner. My ultimate sport. So I can't wait. So I want to bring on a couple minutes. I basically want to ask you 5 random questions, and we'll just discuss these things, randomly, of course. As we get closer to the NBA, I'll be doing a season preview, with my boys Zack and Chris next week on the show. We do as we've been doing for the last 13 years in the show. First question I ask you, Greg.
Mhm.
With the cat trade now, Carl Towns going to New York, in exchange for Julius Randle and DiVincenzo going to Minnesota. In your eyes, are the Knicks the clear number 2 team in the East now?
That's a good question.
That's a pause.
Yeah, I mean, like Boston's clearly number 1. I think the Knicks will be the second best team during the regular season. I have questions about how that trade's going to work come postseason time, just because I feel like I don't have a problem with them getting rid of Randall. Like, I don't know how he was going to fit on that team because he reminds me of, to keep it local for people that are watching the New York area, he reminds me of like a power forward version of Cam Thomas. Like, he's going to score a ton of points, but he's going to sort of be like a black hole on offense and monopolize the ball. So I really don't have a problem with the way that they want to play with Bridges and with Brunson and Anunoby, and they want to share the ball and, the Nova Knicks and all that sort of stuff, even though they lost one of the Nova Knicks in that trade.
Right.
So Randall, I don't know that he necessarily made sense from a success standpoint. His numbers were going to be good, but I don't know that Karl Anthony Towns fixes the Mitchell Robinson problem, because Mitchell Robinson's always hurt. So they they needed a center. So I mean,
losing Hartenstein was not good.
Yeah. So I mean, just the way that the salary cap and the offseason is structured, like the Knicks could only go to a certain point for Hartenstein, and they couldn't get to where Oklahoma City was willing to get to. So I mean, I understand why he's not here anymore, but I mean, ideally, he'd still be your starting center. So they were really in a predicament with Robinson not coming back till December, maybe January, and then probably likely getting hurt a couple of games after that, and then really being stuck with Randall playing the 5 or Precious Achiuwa playing the 5. So they needed a center.
Right.
I'm just a little concerned about how Thibodeau plays his guys all the time. For example, the preseason game that I was just watching, you still had up 26 points Karl Anthony Towns playing a minute into the fourth quarter against the Wizards.
That's so Tom Thibodeau, dude.
In a meaningless game. And said by the announcer was Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns have played the entire second half. And I'm like, what is he doing? So, I mean, like, I'm just concerned that they don't have the kind of depth necessary. Like, they're going to win a ton of regular season games. They always, like, a Tom Thibodeau team always wins a ton of regular season games. I don't know that this trade necessarily makes them a little different, but I mean, I don't necessarily like losing 2 guys for 1. I do like getting Randall. I don't know that Karl Anthony Towns solves everything. It's going to make them a much better offensive team. He's not a great defender, though.
But neither was Randall, though. Randall was not
no. He was kind of a lazy defender. I think he had the ability to be a good defender, but he sort of like was doing the LeBron thing where he's sort of saving himself on one end of the floor, except like he's like more than a decade younger than LeBron. So, I mean, it doesn't really work. So I like them moving Randall. I just don't know that come playoff time, he's going to move the needle. And I also worry about their depth during the regular season. I think that because of Thibodeau, they're going to win games. I'm a believer in Philly, and I'm still a believer. I'm probably the only one left in Milwaukee. So I think they had a sneaky good offseason, considering they really had no flexibility. I think they added some good depth, and they're getting Giannis back healthy and Dame in better shape. So, I mean, I think that the Knicks are going to have their hands full, and to win the number of games that they need to be the second seed, they're going to have to play those guys a lot of minutes. And if you have someone like Anunoby who's always get hurt again,
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns has a history of injury, and Anunoby has a history of injury. Obviously, you like that Bridges and Brunson seemingly play all the time, and Hart too. But I mean, I'm just concerned that if one or two of those guys go down, like
Yeah, I'm reading these minutes here. For example, tonight, like this game's almost over. Like it's over now, pretty much. 27 seconds to go. But Carmen Towns 28 minutes, Brunson 23 minutes, Bridges 30 minutes, Anunoby 25 minutes, Josh Hart 24 minutes. Maybe it's the only game they do this with this roster like this. Like this is so tough to though. I can't stand it. It's
30 minutes for Bridges in a preseason game against Washington is obscene, considering that the guy's never missed a game before. Like if he had the second most amount of miles run last year to Jason Tatum. So I mean, like the guy just plays and plays and plays. He doesn't need these reps. I guess you're saying, okay, he's new to the team, he's new to the system. You want to get him his reps, but like I don't want to get guys hurt in a meaningless game. And like this sort of goes back to your question about where could that downfall be? Where was my hesitation? And it's like that worries me a little bit, just given that these guys are gonna have to play a lot of minutes, and maybe I'm not worried about Bridges or Brunson, but I'm gonna be worried about Anunoby and Towns. And then if you have to start Achua, if you have to start bringing guys like Landry Shamet off the bench or Tyler Kolek off the bench, they just don't have a lot of depth there. And so like losing DiVincenzo, I think
that's a big loss. That's a big loss.
Yeah, I mean he shot 40% from three last year. So I mean, like you're taking a guy who's probably going to come off your bench and be like a flamethrower off the bench, and now that just disappears. And I get that you can't have Randall guarding Embiid and Giannis and like all the bigs that you're going to need in the Eastern Conference, but at the same time, I don't know that Towns solves a lot of those problems, although he is going to make their offense a little bit more watchful because Mitchell Robinson's not a good offensive player. So it'll be a little more aesthetically pleasing, at least.
So let's power rank the East for a second, then. So because you're obviously pushing back on the Knicks being number 2. I'm not saying you're wrong there for the record. We clearly agreed that Boston's number 1 still. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's not that I don't believe in Philly. It's that I don't believe in Philly to stay healthy because you got 3 guys. Well, Maxi's okay, but Paul George, and of course Embiid. You saw what Embiid last year. He finally he had a couple of good years where like he just actually managed to stay healthy. Then last year happens. He misses a chunk of the year. Philly falls apart. Well, he's gone. He comes back. They make a run late, and then they lose the first round of the Knicks, obviously. But the Embiid windows, I think we discussed in the podcast last year. Maybe you and I, or maybe somebody else. But the Embiid window is much smaller than I give credit for. If people give credit for, even at 28 years old. I don't trust that still. I mean, they have a good roster. You still got good pieces around there. They signed Kill Martin, I think, from the Heat. Mm-hmm. A couple of good pieces there. But Paul George is what, 35, 34?
Yeah, he's 34.
Yeah, I mean,
going to be 35 during the season.
He's a good player, but he's another guy that does not stay healthy. And I just don't know if I trust that. I feel like the Knicks, what they have is, in comparison to the Sixers, I trust the Knicks roster to stay healthier in comparison. So that's one team, that when you say, okay, who's number 2? I don't trust Philadelphia to make it to the finish line into April. They'll be wounded, in my opinion. The other team is Milwaukee. Their window's closing also too as well. Now Giannis is still 28, 29 years old. You still got Dame. Injuries throughout the year last year too, also as well, especially in the playoffs. I feel like Milwaukee, and I'll ask this question on the back end of my final question is, in the back end of this segment, but I feel like people will see Milwaukee again. People all of a sudden are like, oh, well, Milwaukee did this and that and didn't do anything in the playoffs. And even though we forgot that they had the 2 best players, Giannis didn't play the entire series at all. Dame missed a chunk of the series. Milwaukee feels like a team that, could bounce back and be the number 2 team. Anything. I mean, I would feel more comfortable with Milwaukee being number 2 than say Philadelphia. And then you of course have the Clevelands and the youth of Cleveland, and you have obviously Miami if they're hanging around, of course. Indiana's on the upside. There's a lot of things around. And I get the pushback to the Knicks. I get the pushback to the Knicks. Be number 2, but I don't know, man. If I had to pick up of that litter for number 2 in the East behind Boston, I still say Milwaukee, man. I don't know why. I can't quit Giannis and those boys. I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, I get that a lot of people are down on Milwaukee, but I look at them and I'm like, Giannis is still relatively young. Lillard, I think, with a full season of Doc Rivers being there too, so he can
Yeah,
run. And the thing about Doc is that, like, he's not a great coach, but I don't think he's going to lose you games. Like,
no,
he's just like, he's a solid coach. He's not going to do anything brilliant,
he
but I
has a
don't think.
ceiling. He has a
Yeah,
ceiling.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't think he's going to cost you either. But what I like about what they did is they replaced Malik Beasley with Gary Trent Jr. I thought
Yeah,
that was a big upgrade. Gary Trent Jr. obviously has some history with Lillard from their days in Portland, so I like that pickup. Torian Prince they got for nothing basically. I like that pickup. DeLon Wright. I mean, you could even play him next to Lillard if you want to add a
yeah.
long, rangy defending, a guard to defend other teams' two guards. You could do that. They still have Bobby Portis coming off the bench. They still have, Pat Connaughton, although he hasn't been good last couple of years. I still like their depth a little bit. And I'm not even counting Chris Middleton. Like, I understand he had ankle surgery to both ankles in the offseason. But I will say that, I mean, he almost carried them. Like, he carried them to competitiveness in that first round with no Giannis and no Lillard.
Yeah.
So if you know that you just have him healthy for the playoffs, like, if you could just get him to the playoffs, like, I'll take my chances with them against anyone, including Boston.
All right. So
Uh,
power rank the top four teams in the East right now, in
well,
your
I mean,
opinion.
those are the top four teams. I mean,
So in order. So Boston.
so I'm going to say Boston. I'm still going to, after all I just said, I'm still going to say the Knicks only because I feel like Tom Thibodeau is going to sell out playing guys 40 minutes a night to win games in January and February that other teams just aren't going to be willing to do. Like, I don't see Doc Rivers playing Giannis 42 minutes or Lillard 42 minutes. So, like, I think some of those teams will be willing to lose games for the greater good. Like, to your point about Philly, can we get them to the playoffs healthy? You're not going to get them to the playoffs healthy by playing Embiid 70 something games and playing him 35
Agreed.
games a
Totally
night.
agree with that.
So,
Totally agree
so
with that.
like, I mean, I'm looking at Philly from a playoff perspective. Is that going to make them great in the regular season? I mean, the funny thing about all this is that, like, we assume that those are going to be the top four seeds. I guarantee you, one of Indiana or Cleveland or Orlando or one of those teams crashes the
Yeah.
party, and, like, you've got one team who gets banged up and injured and winds up as like the fifth seed, and
Which
one
team
of
do you
those.
think? Which team of the three you think will crack it? What likely
I
crack
mean,
more?
Cleveland's the most likely, just because you could make the argument that, like, okay, Evan Mobley will take another step. They've got a new coach, an offensive-minded coach. They're going to shoot a lot of threes. Maybe it's better for Garland. Maybe he can unlock something with Garland and Mitchell that JB Bickerstaff wasn't able to unlock. And again, JB Bickerstaff is much like Doc Rivers. Like, I feel like he's a fine coach. He's not going to lose you games, but he's not going to win you games either. So, I mean, like, he's a fine coach, but I don't know that didn't really make much sense. Not that I want to get on a tangent, but I don't know why Detroit necessarily picked him up. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, it's almost like, if there's one year you want to be bad, this is the year, and it's like they're going for like 34 wins and like a
They're
nine
tired of
seed
being. I
stuff.
think they're tired of being bad. At some
Yeah,
point, this gets to you. It's like, oh, we're tired of being bad. Like,
yeah.
oh, one more year bad. I don't care. Get me out of here now. I
But
get
but
it.
do it one more year and get Ace Bailey or Cooper Flag or one of those guys. I
Yeah.
mean, like, this isn't the year to try and be a hero. So, but that's just me getting on a tangent. I mean, I feel like Cleveland out of those teams is the most likely team to get there.
Right. All right. Question number two. Which star is under the most pressure this year, in your opinion?
I mean, it's probably similar to question one. It's probably Joel Embiid, because I mean, he's probably only got what 2 years left of like prime basketball, and like the Paul George move is a great move, but I mean, like, your window is Paul George's contract is Embiid's contract. Like, if they don't get it, and Embiid's not going to get better as he gets older. So I mean, like, he really, and he's got all the players around him. I thought Daryl Morey had. I mean, he's probably in the front running for executive of the year. I mean, not just adding Paul George, but adding Caleb Martin, adding Eric Gordon, adding Andre Drummond, who can spell Embiid. If you want to play Embiid 50 games, and maybe you want to play that rookie Adam Bona as the backup to Andre Drummond, maybe you can get away with that a little bit. But I mean, Embiid, people are going to say Luka, because he's arguably the best player, and one of the
Right.
three best players in the league. But
Yes.
he's still so young that, like, I don't know that I'm willing to say that if he doesn't do it this year, he can't ever do it. I mean, like Jason Tatum did it last year, and it took him a long time to do it, and he's still super young. I mean, he's still
Mhm.
26 years old, so it's not as if like he's 35. So I
Right.
mean, Luka's still got plenty of time. I think the clock is ticking on Embiid. And if it doesn't happen in the next 2 years, it's probably never going to happen. I would say Luka's runway is a lot longer than
Yeah, I
than,
agree with
than
you on that.
those 2 years.
No, I have two guys actually here. And I agree with you. Embiid, I definitely agree with you on that. I think his windows is year. I'll go further than this one. I think it's year to year at this point
Sure.
because he's the way he plays. Also, he flops around, he falls on the floor. There's gonna be a one random night he'll do that, and that'll be it. And I don't want that to happen to him, obviously, but the style play he does, it's not conducive to long term success. It really isn't. But he's a big dude. I mean, obviously on top of that too. Two guys I got on my list here. Giannis, obviously in Milwaukee. And it's weird saying Giannis because he has a ring,
Mm.
but for him to pile on going forward, and I think his style play also too. He's not a perimeter player, so his game won't age well as it gets into his 30s. So how this Milwaukee window? How could they extend this window another 2-3 years? I mean, you got Dame there, obviously. Dame is good, but Dame's window is what, maybe 2 years at most as a top 20 guy. And then Giannis's game will only age worse as he gets to his 30s. So remember we were having a conversation about this a couple years ago about Giannis if he wins 2 rings, and all of a sudden Giannis is now in the top 15 discussion all the time. And and obviously things have happened around him that has prevented this. Obviously, coaches, or was the injuries he had last couple of years in the playoffs, where it's Chris Middleton getting hurt in the Boston series 2 years ago and all that. We get all that, but I think we're moving further away from that. For the conversation, we're like, oh, Giannis could be a top 15 player all the time, even top 10 if you play the cards right, another ring. So now, we sure he's going to get to the finals anytime soon? I don't know. So to me, he's on a little bit of pressure. The next guy is pretty obvious for similar reasons too, who has rings, but this is more of a legacy play. It's Kevin Durant. Like this is it. Like to me, like no one's picking Phoenix to do anything this year really beyond just like getting to the playoffs, maybe win a series or two. KD's 36, 37 years old now. I
Yeah.
mean, he's still great, but you know, it's now or
I
never at this point.
I agree with both those players. The reason why I wouldn't necessarily said either one of them is just because they have rings. But I mean, you're totally right. I mean, with Durant, the team hopping, if he doesn't win another ring, if he struck out in Oklahoma City, needed to join a 72 win team that was a 73 win team that was tailor made to win titles with or without him. Those are
Yeah,
the only rings that he gets, and then he hops from team to team, and then he can't get there. You're right, that will be a bad look. But he could always say, "I can sleep well at night because I've already got multiple rings." And
sure.
Giannis, when you were describing Giannis, the first thing I was thinking was Russell Westbrook, like another guy whose game is built on force and athleticism,
Yeah,
but can't shoot the ball, so his game doesn't age well. So I mean, it's the same kind of thing. I do agree with you there too. But since they both have rings, it wasn't the first thing that jumped to my mind. But they are both under a tremendous amount of pressure. There's no doubt about it.
yeah, and this is it. All right, question number 3. Percentage chance Zach LaVine from Chicago gets dealt this year. Every year is in trade discussions, but every year nothing happens.
I'm sure a lot of teams would like him. Like I would be shocked if a team like Orlando didn't want him, because I feel like you look at a team like Orlando, the only thing that they're missing is perimeter shooting. Like if
Yes,
you could take a guy out there who could just go get his own shot and who could comfortably shoot threes next to Banchero and Franz Wagner, they'd love it. The issue is just his contract is so bad, and I mean it's hard to match salary for him. I think that the reason why the Bulls didn't move him over the summer before the trade deadline last year, they had to attach assets to him. Like for a team willing to take him on, maybe like a team like the Nets would say, okay, like we'll take that bad salary on, but you're gonna have to give us picks, along with
yeah,
that. We'll give you Ben Simmons, but then now you have to give us picks because of the length of his contract. I think that's the biggest deterrent. It's not that he can't play, it's just that they're not going anywhere with him. And to get him, if you have to cobble together 40, $45 million worth of salary, that's not an easy thing to do. Good teams don't just have bad contracts lying around. They can just flip for $40 million. So I'm sure that both the Bulls, Levine, and another team would love to have him elsewhere. I don't know how feasible it's going to be as far as what deals are out there to just move him for.
So
I mean, I mean, there are teams like like we keep talking about the Sixers, but like
Pick on them
KJ,
all the time.
like
I like it.
like KJ Martin, like they were calling him Zack Lowe when he was still doing his podcast, called him like the human trade exception because like they signed him to a deal that's basically meant to be moved, as part of another deal. But the only problem with that is that that's only like an $8 million deal, and there's a lot of guys like that, but like $8 to $10 million is not going to get you to 40. So, I mean, I think that the Bulls are going to have trouble moving that. So, I mean, my guess would be that he's still there because also if they play just a little better and they're in playing contention, I feel like they have an owner who's not really willing to just strip it down to the studs and like would rather compete for the play-in and being the 7th seed or the 8th seed and getting blown out by Boston or whomever than taking it all the way down to the bottom. So I feel like he's probably more likely to be there than not.
Other than Orlando, who else will you play at? You think he will fit there? Like a team that can use him, like that you take him. This team is over the top. Puts him on top. That does any bad team. There's like a team that actually needs a guard that can actually put him in contention. Like you said Orlando, which I agree with 100%. Any other teams besides that?
Oh, so like we can't use a team like the Pistons again? So I'm I mean, I guess it's all relative in terms of another team that, I guess it depends on how you define good. I mean, like if you put him on a team like Atlanta, for example, like,
Bad.
like that's just me like completely off the top of my head. But like, if making the 8 seed is considered good, I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of teams like if you look in the West, like
What about the Warriors? Could the Warriors use him with Steph? Would that work?
maybe, I guess. I don't know what they're giving up for him. I mean, like the Warriors are interesting because I feel like they've got one of the deeper teams in the league. They just after Steph don't have like a tremendous amount of high end talent. I mean,
Right.
like they go deep with like D'Anthony Melton and Kyle Anderson and adding Brandon Pajemski and I mean, but look, maybe if they're willing to get rid of Wiggins and part with a pick or two, maybe that gets it done. And maybe they need more shooting around Steph since they lost Klay Thompson to Dallas. I mean, that's probably as good an example as I could think of.
So
And
mm-hmm.
they'd also be desperate to do it because their window is Steph's window, and like they're gonna throw good money after bad if they need to try and give Steph as many cracks at it as possible.
Here's where I'll probably agree with you on the fact that he may be there in Chicago another year because it'll be more attractive to get him next year on his final year before his player option. So this year, $43 million. Okay, then the next year, 25-26, 45-9. Then a player opt to 48-9, which I honestly he may opt out of that because he's still young enough. He's still young enough to get multiple years and probably
True.
get
He
about.
also does have a lot of injuries though, so I mean it'll be
That's true.
interesting to see.
Yeah.
And look, he could probably opt out and take like a Chris Middleton deal with like any team that he wants if he wants to go chase a ring. But like,
Right.
what does he prioritize at this point? Would he rather make 50 million and lose, or would he rather make 32 million? Would he rather take a Harden deal or a Chris Middleton deal and like chase a title?
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money though. It's a lot of money.
True.
We say that fans like, oh, go for the rings, but $50 million is still a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I'm not telling him what he should do. I would take the money too. So
yeah, of course. Come on now. No, I think maybe the Warriors look at that, but again, pieces to get up for that, of course. And I think Orlando, I like the Orlando pick. The Orlando pick was actually a really good one because they need. I thought Klay Thompson should have went to Orlando, honestly. But
yeah,
I'm okay. I'm okay with them going to Dallas. Though I'm okay with it.
I still think that they're one like guard away from like really doing what they ultimately want to do. Like they were a Donovan Mitchell away, basically, from like being really, really good.
Absolutely. All right. Question number 4 is Wemby a top 10 player in your eyes entering this year? Victor Wembanyama.
Oh,
the unicorn.
That's a good question.
I will not answer this question because I'm going to have my own list coming out next week when we do my top 25 players of the entering the year. So I'm not going to answer this question. I want you to answer this question. It's a little bit of a tease.
I'll say yes. And the reason I'll say yes is because he's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. Like he's probably going to be the front runner for that award for the next 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So defense matters to me. So I mean, like maybe he's not going to go out and score 34 points a game like Luka did last year, but like Luka's not a good defender. So I'm taking into account that he plays both ends of the floor. I don't think his shooting percentage is going to be like amazingly high, but he's
Yeah,
probably going to have a lot of games where he has like 22 points, 18 rebounds, a couple steals, 3 or 4 blocks. Like, to me, and also I think that having some veterans around him will only help his case, because he's going to have Chris Paul, he's going to have Harrison Barnes, he's going to have some adults in the room, as they say. So like I feel that is going to help his maturation process too. So
yeah.
I would take him probably over a number of other players, just given the fact that he's so good defensively.
It's quite possible right now that he might be the best two-way player in basketball right now.
True.
Just
Yeah.
based on what you just said there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, look, if you're saying top 10, like, would I rate him at, like, 8 or 9? Like, yeah, probably. Like, I wouldn't say that he's, like, 4 or 5, but I would say
Who's your locks? Your locks are who? So Luka, Giannis, Jokic. You mean 3. Steph Curry's. It's
Shea
not
Gilgeous
in any order. Not in any order.
Shea
Steph Curry,
Gilgeous-Alexander's in there too.
SGA, Tatum. That's 6. Are
And
you
you're
putting
probably still saying
KD,
Embiid, KD.
KD? That's 8. That's 8 right there. LeBron.
I mean, would I
After
probably
the Olympics, I don't know, man.
I
Maybe
mean, LeBron's still amazing, but would you rather have, well, I guess if we're just talking about today.
one year sample. It's 1 year sample.
Yeah, if you maybe still LeBron. So maybe I'll put him at 10. Like, maybe I'd rather have him than Anthony
I
Davis.
mean, and then the other guys considered at the 10 spots is like D-Book and who else? What other guys are missing there? I mean, Anthony
And
Edwards maybe.
speaking of the Olympics, Devin Booker did himself a lot of favors in the Olympics with how well he defended. So I think, the idea that like he was only a one-way player, like he really locked in defensively and was able to play in a secondary role in the Olympics. So I think he did himself a lot of favors there. So,
Right. So
I would still take Wemby over Booker, though.
of course, no, I would like. Again, I'm not going to answer this question now because I'm going to reveal my answer to this on the next episode I do next week. Excuse me. Yeah, allergies. But the fact that we're already here year 2, because last year I was so worried about the fact that Wemby, okay, he's gonna be great, but he's gonna be a project first, because will he play enough games to justify him being rookie of the year first off? And he did that, and he got better as the year went on, and the fact now he's able to stay healthy and he's dominating the ball. I think Chris Paul being there is gonna help a lot. People gonna say, "Oh, Chris Paul's too old." You don't get it. It's Chris Paul is able to actually set. That Spurs team last year was so chaotic that Wemby was getting points off of misses and off of like plays already run for him. Now Chris Paul can settle down the offense and actually run plays for Wemby. That'll go a whole long way. So
you think Chris Paul's gonna be a better point guard than Jeremy Sohan? I'm kidding.
jeez, Robin wannabe.
Yeah.
No, so I will answer that question though, but there is a conversation to be made about the fact that he should be top 10. And if you're saying he's top 10, then I mean, who knows, bro?
I mean, again, I'm looking at like 9 or 10. Like, I'm not putting him at like 3 or 4.
That's the thing. Though, the fact he's already there year 2 at his size, it's saying something. It's saying just. I'll say it again because I entered last year saying this. I said into the year that this guy will be the best player in basketball in 5 years, and halfway through the year, I shortened it to 3. And I'm tempted to go even shorter than that, because I think honestly, we could be seeing this guy being probably top 5 in the league, but at this same time next year doing this podcast.
I would hope so for his sake, because he's got that kind of talent.
Yeah, he's really that good. I mean, it might be sooner than we think. So, all right, final question before I let you go. Which team or player should or will have the biggest chip on their shoulder?
Biggest chip on their shoulder?
Yeah.
I mean, am I allowed to say Paul George? Because
you can.
I keep going down the
Might as well. I mean, that's the pattern in this podcast anyway. So we'll go right ahead
with the Philly argument. Biggest chip. I mean, I guess if we had done this podcast, I guess last year, like Jason Tatum would have been a good example, but like Boston gets wiped off the map by winning the title. Biggest chip, John Morant is probably one of them. Because I think a lot of people, myself included, think that they could be a top 4 seed in the West. And the only thing I guess that would be keeping them from that would be if he's not available for whatever
Other
reason. Yeah,
extracurricular activities.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think that he's got a lot to prove, and I think that they've got the pieces around him being healthy. So I would say John Morant or Paul George. Paul George maybe being my answer, but to get away from the Philly theme, I will say John Morant, 1A, 1B. So, I
Yeah.
mean, look, there are a lot of guys that are under a lot of pressure this year. I mean, like you said, like KD's got a tremendous chip on his shoulder. I mean, you could make the same argument for Booker or Giannis or any one of those guys. But I mean, like, I don't know. I look at John Morant and I'm like, that team could like contend for a Western title. I mean, they've got all the pieces around them. I mean, they've got Desmond Bain, they've got Jaren Jackson, they added Marcus
Yeah.
Smart, and if all those guys are healthy, like there's no reason why they shouldn't be right up there with the Dallases and Minnesotas and Denvers of the world. So I mean, they're right there. So yeah, I think that would probably be a good one.
No, you mentioned it earlier. You just mentioned it. It was Boston and Tatum for me.
Yeah.
And you say, oh, well, they won a title. I don't care. I don't think I've seen a more disrespected player and team that's won a title. The guy goes to the Olympics, barely plays. Okay, this is a top 5 player in the league at this point. I mean, I think we will agree he's a top 5 player. Even though in these parts of this podcast it is controversial because he's the most frustrating top 5 player in the league because he has all the talent, he has the numbers, but he doesn't have the dog in him. And I know it's a recurring theme in this podcast for the last like 3 or 4 years now, but it stands to be said. And of course, we get why Boston got disrespected last year because yes, they had the easiest trek to the finals. Everybody was injured until the Dallas series. It doesn't feel like the Celtics are the defending champions. It doesn't feel like it. Like when Denver won 2 years ago, it's like, oh, Jokic did it, and oh my God, Denver. Boston wins. It's like, okay, whatever. That's the vibe I get right now with the Celtics and Tatum. So I feel like, chip on the shoulder, you would hope that Tatum has that after everything's gone through, win a title, and not being respected. Not winning Finals MVP. Jaylen Brown was the correct answer for that. They got it right for the record. Then going to the Olympics, and then that happening. I mean, if you're Tatum, you have to have a chip on your shoulder at this point. The biggest chip on your shoulder. Like, I'm the guy that's gone to 7 Eastern Conference Finals, 2 NBA Finals, won a championship, and y'all still don't respect me at all? Really? It's got to be Tatum and the Celtics with a bullet.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with that. I will say that I think Boston, not that they have a lot more room to improve. They were already amazing last year, historically in a lot of ways. But I mean, I feel like them winning the title is going to take a lot of pressure off them, so they're going to be able to be a little looser. So I don't think that they're going to take a step back at all, probably because they don't feel like they have that pressure on them. And maybe maybe to your point, they should, because like you said, Jaylen Brown wasn't selected for the team. Jason Tatum was selected for the team and then wasn't played. I mean, I guess I could justify that in a sense with like, there's only one ball and you need guys to do other things on the floor.
But so, DMP though, a DMP.
Yeah, I know. I get it. But I mean, to be honest, they could have probably had 2 teams that were capable of winning the gold. So I know they should have lost to Serbia, but
not
still.
Not to mention too, Greg, also on top of that, Jaylen Brown not making the team itself, but Derek White goes instead. I mean,
I think the reason why Derek White played so much is the reason why Jason Tatum didn't. Because like Derek White doesn't need the ball in his hands. They could just trot him out there, say defend, make the right move, make the right pass. If you're wide open, shoot it. But like he didn't need plays run for him.
Yeah.
I feel like Jason Tatum needs plays run for him, and they already had enough guys on the floor that they were going to be running offense through. So that's probably why he didn't play. And they had other guys who could defend better. Not that Tatum's not a good defender. I think that he's a great 2-way player. But I do agree with you. I don't necessarily know that I've ever seen like a dog in him or like like MJ had it, Kobe had it. Like you're never going to see that from Tatum. I mean, you probably just want a little bit of that. But I think that now that he won a title, that probably takes some of the pressure off. But hey, maybe hopefully he takes what happened in the Olympics personally and see him take another step. He's still got room to grow. He's still young, so
that's the thing too. Also, like, is he top 5 in your right? Like he's top 5 on your list, right? See, no. See,
maybe like 6 or 7.
That's a point though. The very fact, think about it. he should be top 5 already. He should be there already. And the fact that we can't like he might be on my top 5. We'll see him on my list next week. But if he's top 5, he's number 5.
Yeah, but I mean, like I'm a really big Shea Gilgeous-Alexander fan, so I mean, I'm more likely to put him in the top 5 than I am to put Tatum in the top 5.
You take
But,
SGA or Tatum right now if you wanted to. Like you take on your team. You're building a team right now. You take SGA or Tatum right now.
God, that's a tough one.
Aha!
Probably SGA. Probably
Me too.
probably
Me too.
SGA.
Me
Yeah,
too.
because
Me
I
too.
mean, I feel like he's done more with less, whereas Tatum has had a lot more around him, which also is why I never thought that Tatum was going to be an MVP candidate and probably won't be for the foreseeable future. Not that he won't be like, 4th or 5th in the voting. He's just got so much talent around him
Yeah.
that it's almost like when KD and Steph and Klay Thompson, they were all in the Warriors. It's like, how do you separate one of those guys when on any given night, one of those guys could have a total dud and they could still win the game by 25 points?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has, for the past couple of years, had to do a lot of heavy lifting, and now he's finally seeing the fruits of his labor come out. So, I mean, like, if you're talking top 5, I mean, you're talking Jokic, Doncic, Giannis.
Be honest. You still putting Steph there?
Maybe not top 5.
Wow. Interesting.
But
Interesting.
and then
Anthony Edwards?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good players in the league. I mean, I'm probably putting SGA at 4, to be honest with you.
Wow. That's love. That's love. Let me throw you one more bonus question for the listeners here. Are you buying the Thunder as finals as Western Conference favorites?
I'm buying them to have the best record in the Western Conference. I don't know that I would take them in the playoffs just because I still feel like I know they had a great offseason. Adding Alex Caruso is huge. Hartenstein's a huge upgrade.
Hartenstein was huge. That feels a need. That absolute need. They need size.
Yeah. And another year of Chet Holmgren growing, becoming better. I would say that they're the most well-rounded team. Are they still too young? I don't know. I guess like if I had to make a choice today, I would say yes for them. I think they definitely will have the best record in the Western Conference just because of their depth. But, do they get into a playoff series with a Dallas or, a Minnesota or a Memphis or whatever that gives them all they can handle? Like, would that surprise me if they lost a tough 7-game series in the Western Conference Finals? Like, I wouldn't be shocked.
Who would you be a favorite to win the West right now? I know you have Boston win the East, but who would be a favorite in the West right now? Regardless of record, like going to the finals. Because Denver feels like the easy answer, but I feel like Denver got a little worse.
They did get a little worse, but I mean, I feel like they're banking on some of their younger guys to take a step up, and I don't know why they can't do that. But I feel like they are really banking on. I mean, Jokic will stay healthy because he doesn't play an athletic game, but like Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, like those guys have to stay healthy. I mean, I guess Aaron Gordon's had some injury problems, but I mean, I feel like Porter Jr. has got to be like he's got to live up to his contract. I mean,
he's a wild card.
He's getting a max contract. He's got to be a max player, and if he's not a max player, all the Peyton Watsons and Julian Strothers of the world are not going to save him.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, when you bake in the Porter Jr. injuries and the inconsistent play, but Murray's injuries too, I hurt last year once again. Jokic is Jokic. He's not. I don't think Jokic got any better than he is now, but he's still amazing. But I think Denver. I'm a little bit like Denver. Other than favorites, in my opinion, probably, but it's by a thin margin at this point in the West.
I'd probably take Dallas over Denver only because, like, I don't even know, and like, I don't know that this is a hot take, but like, I don't even know if Michael Malone is going to make it through the season as their head coach.
What?
And the reason why I say that is because I don't think that he is on board with management and ownership letting a lot of these veterans go.
Wait, you're saying that he may quit?
No. I think that there could be like a power struggle and he could get fired.
Well, you'll be on the pod all year long, so we'll definitely keep an eye on that situation.
I mean, like, look, it's not that he's a bad coach. I just don't think that he's liked losing Bruce Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jeff Green. I think that Calvin Booth is sort of forcing a lot of these younger players on him by letting these other guys go. And I don't necessarily know that he's on board with that. And so we will see how that plays out over the course of an 82-game season.
Yeah, I think the KCP move was I even did I spoke on it during the summer. That KCP move was, I think, hurts Denver more than helps Orlando.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I don't think Orlando's in a position to win a title right now, whereas like Denver is in a position to win a title. and you're taking a key piece. I mean, everywhere he goes, it seems like they get better. He went to the Lakers, obviously they're in the bubble, but I mean, still, he was a huge piece of that team. He's been a huge piece of the Nuggets. So I think that that's an underrated loss. We'll see if the Christian Browns and, like I said, Julian Strothers, Peyton Watsons of the world can make that leap. But I don't think that Michael Malone is happy that he's in the position that he's in with losing all these veterans. And so we'll see if there's any fallout from that. So
Yeah.